All right, welcome everyone to our DES 242 logo and identity design live session. I am your instructor, Shannon McNamara. I'm just going to turn on my camera for a second so I can say hello. And hello everyone. I just wanted to welcome you to our first class for DES 242 logo and identity design. Sorry, I got a little bit of a glare on my glasses. I'm teaching from downstairs in the in my dungeon office tonight. So if you are catching that, hi Trisha. I just noticed that you logged in. Welcome.
Oh, hello, thank you.
And I just started. I do want to let everybody know I do open up the course usually a couple of minutes early. So if you are planning on trying to come live, that's awesome. You can log in a couple of minutes early. I'm usually in here about 5 minutes early, just so that way everybody doesn't feel like they're scrambling to get in exactly at 4 o'clock Mountain Time. I had to check and see what time it was. It's 6 o'clock my time. I'm actually located in Massachusetts, so I'm on Eastern Standard Time. So just kind of keep that in mind if you are trying to get in touch with me. I do tend to go to bed early and get up early, so you may have emails from me early. I try to look everything over when I first get up in the morning and try to do my best to respond to people as soon as I can. I am a graphic and web designer. I've been working in the field for 20 years. And I actually took graphic design not only in college, but I took it in high school as well. So I have quite a few years under my belt in the various Adobe programs and the field of graphic and web design. I actually worked in Photoshop way before the CC Suite ever came out, when it was Photoshop 2 was the first version of Photoshop that I worked in, and it was all black and white. So if you ever get a chance to check out any screenshots of some older versions of the Adobe programs, it's kind of funny. I worked in Adobe InDesign from the when it was first released as just a beta version. Before that, I worked in a program called Quark Express, which nobody uses anymore, but it was basically InDesign before there was InDesign. I've worked in Illustrator for years. I also am pretty good, I like to think, in Dreamweaver and Muse. If you ever have me in one of those courses, I also teach those courses for Independence University, and I teach for an online high school. So I kind of run the gamut for what I teach. I teach English and a lot of electives for the online high school. So that's a little bit about me. We're going to tonight go over the course a bit. We'll take a look at the discussion question for this week, the assignment, and the assessment for this week. If I don't get a chance to kind of do some demo work tonight, I will do that during our second live session. Also, I just want to state you should all have an email from me. Please make sure that if you receive an email from me, you are responding. That's the way I communicate with everyone in the course. Is through emails and through the announcements in the course. So we'll go over some of the announcements this evening as well. But let's hop right into it. Okay, so our agenda for tonight, just a little bit of welcome and introductions. We'll go over the announcements like I was stating. We'll take a look at the syllabus, grading, Canvas, a whole little look at the course. We will discuss, the course DES 242, logo and identity design, what we're looking for this mod. We will discuss what is logo design, and then we'll do a little, is it a logo? And then jump into assignment 1 if time permits. So my telephone hours are roughly 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Mountain Time. However, the best way to get in touch with me is definitely via email, because I do work 2 different jobs, and because I am located on Eastern Standard Time Zone. so you gotta be aware of the time zone change when you are trying to reach me. I always say the best way to reach me is definitely through email. I get my email on my phone, I get my email on my computer. One of those places I should be able to get back to you relatively quickly. So that's definitely the best way to get in touch with me. If you do call me, please leave me a voicemail if you do not catch me. I do try to check my messages throughout the day. But again, probably the best way to get in touch with me is by email. Now, it's really up to you if you would like to introduce yourself and just say hello to the class. You can type, if you don't want to, that's completely fine as well. If you want to turn on your microphone, you can. If you want to type it in the chat, I can read it out loud. And if you don't want to answer the questions, I completely understand as well. One thing I do want to ask everyone is I want to know if anybody has gotten the Adobe upgrade to CC 2018. That is the version that I am currently running on my machine. There was an upgrade last week. When I did the upgrade, it looked like it was a pretty basic upgrade, and then I realized it was to Adobe CC 2018, so I had to reinstall all of the icons in my taskbar, and it was a whole thing. So if you want to state your name, where you're from, what your major is, how you feel about the graphics applications, what your career goals are. And this is actually a good segue for me to hop over into the course for a second. Under modules, I know everybody always misses this because it doesn't show up down at the bottom. But week 1 has 2 discussions. The first is to introduce yourself. And if you're not quite sure what to kind of say in the introduction, you can copy and paste this: your name, your location, your major, what your experience is with the graphics applications, did you upgrade, what your career goals may be. And those are some good questions to, just kind of introduce yourself to the class. I really would like everyone to make an effort, even though it's not graded, to post something in the introduce yourself discussion. It's really good for everyone to get to know their fellow classmates. And then, if you probably see the same names over and over and over again when you take these online classes. So even though we're not in a physical classroom together, it's kind of nice to make some friends in the online classroom as well. And this is a great way to, just say hello to people that you see every month, it seems, that you see virtually anyways. And there is a little discussion that you can go over as well, on your logo and identity ecosystem, so you can read over the prompt and, just share your own story in the discussion below. So our due dates in the course: all assignments and assessments are due by Saturday at midnight Mountain Time for full credit. Communication regarding late work is key in this course. This will save you missed points. If you are running into a problem during the week, email me, send me an email and say, hey, you know what? Work has been really hectic for me. I've got probably 75% of my assignment done. Can I have through Sunday to get this done? And you know what my response is going to be? Yes, take through Sunday. Thank you for letting me know. And you know what? I'm not going to dock you the late points because you got in touch with me ahead of time. However, if you email me Saturday night at midnight and say, hey, I had a bad week, can I have till Sunday? That's a little bit too late. Communicate early and let me know what's going on when it's happening. And I'm definitely always willing to work with my students regarding those late points. Week 4 assignments cannot be turned in late. I will say this every single week. As a reminder, I have no control over the course. The course closes itself out on the last Saturday of the mod and basically turns into a pumpkin. So I will always go over that. And just a reminder, don't forget, get that week 4 work in on time. Your original discussion posts are due Wednesday by midnight, and then you also need to respond to 2 of your fellow students by Saturday and post on 2 different days. This is my policy. Late discussion posts will not be accepted past that Saturday deadline for the week. So make sure that you are taking part in the discussion each week. It's worth 60 points. Even if your original post is late on Wednesday, post on Thursday. You're only going to miss 5 points by doing that, and getting 55 points versus getting a 0 really counts towards your grade in the end. So make sure that you are posting in the discussion, because if we go into week 2 and then you realize, oh, I never did my discussion for last week, and you go in and did it, that's great, but it's going to remain a 0. I'm a stickler to that rule because everybody else in the course has moved on. We are all now on week 2, and the point of the discussion is to be conversing with your fellow students about the topic of the week. All right, so let's take a look at our course objectives for the week. Yeah, that would be scary if we were doing this course in a week. Let me make this slide really big. So upon successful completion of this course, you should be able to discuss the symbiotic relationship between logos and corporate identities, identify elements of effective logo design, integrate a company's future goals with historic past in a logo redesign, create a unique personal logo, and explain the importance of a cohesive visual logo presentation across a variety of formats. So let's take a look at the expected course hours in this course. Your total course hours for all 4 weeks will probably be around 97 hours. Make sure that you're kind of aware of the expectations. This includes, about 7 to 9 hours each week between the lectures, the readings, the discussions, the assessments, and the daily checkpoints. And then out of class doing research and, putting in the total work, you may be looking at around 20 hours a week. So really make sure that you are, keeping up to date on your work, that you aren't waiting until Saturday to try to get everything done. It's time consuming. This is a time consuming class. So I just want everyone to be aware going into it, what we're doing this mod. So how to succeed in this course, which is what you want, right? Everyone wants to do well, learn what we need to learn, and hopefully get an A. Even though getting an A should not be the end-all be-all in this course. What you want is to walk away from this course learning something and understanding the topic better than when you first got here. I mean, I could give everybody a 100%, and you would all leave this course with an A+. But if I didn't teach you the tools and I didn't hold you accountable to create the best work possible, I'm not doing you any favors when you go out into the world to do this as a career. So keep that in mind, when you receive your grades, when you receive my feedback. I always try to give as much information in my feedback as possible, so that way you can understand what really went well and what needs some work in your assignments and assessments. So read the announcements in the course. Announcements contain pertinent information pertaining to this class, including links, reminders, scheduling. This is how I communicate with you. Participate in the discussions each week. Remember, 60 points adds up each week. Don't take that 0. Complete your assignments on time. If you are late, it's an automatic 20% deduction, which means you're starting at an 80%. So all it takes is one thing to go wrong in the assignment, and you're already in the C range. Make sure you're doing those daily checkpoints. Again, those count towards your grade. I've seen students drop an entire letter grade just because they didn't do the daily checkpoints. So don't let that be you. Attend the live sessions. We'll be demonstrating how to do the assignments in each of the live sessions. And if you can't attend them live, make sure you're watching them in full. Don't just skip through. And again, communication is key in this course. So our live sessions are Mondays and Tuesdays from 4 to 6 p.m. Mountain Time. This gives you ample time during the week to get those assignments done. If you do need any outside help, the Student Success Center is open with tutoring available and no appointment is necessary. And I'll show you how to get into the Student Success Center. And that's a good segue to go over into the course. There is an announcement regarding the course schedule this week. Tomorrow is Halloween, so I have changed our live session for tomorrow to Thursday at 4 p.m. Mountain Time. So same time, just on Thursday, because I figured most people are probably going to be bringing their kids out trick-or-treating. Like I said, I'm Eastern Standard Time, so 4 p.m. Mountain Time is 6 o'clock my time. So even if my daughter's only, 4 months old, I mean, we're still getting her all dressed up, of course. But I foresee my doorbell ringing off the hook tomorrow, which is not really conducive to trying to do a live session. And I don't want to have to leave my husband to baby duty and handing out candy. So I'm going to move that session to Thursday because I don't want it to coincide with any of the extra things that happen on Wednesdays with the Coffee with Creatives and things like that. So tomorrow's live session will be Thursday at 4 o'clock Mountain Time, basically. Long story short, and enjoy your Halloween. All right, so a couple of other announcements. If you can, and you haven't yet, download the Canvas app to your smartphone. This will help you to get those daily checkpoints done each day and keep you up to date on the announcements in the course. I provided a link to the Apple and the Android apps. So you can do that. Also, this might help you. I was hoping I would be able to do a demo of this today, and I was super bummed out. I have an iPad. However, I have an older iPad mini, and the iOS cannot be updated past whatever it is right now. I think it's like 8 or something. And Adobe Sketch requires iOS 10, but if you have a tablet or a smartphone that has iOS 10 on it, there's an app called Adobe Photoshop Sketch that you can load onto the smartphone or iPad or tablet and download it from iTunes or the Google Play Store, and it integrates with Photoshop and Illustrator, so you can also send your work that you've sketched up to your Behance page. So it's really cool. It's a great option for sketching up those logo ideas in the assignment this week, because you can sketch with your finger or sketch with a stylus right in there. So, and then send the work right on over to Photoshop or Illustrator to then work on it. So pretty cool app if you want to add that to, either your smartphone or your tablet. I'll probably end up adding it to my smartphone, honestly, at some point, just because it'll be nice to have. So yeah, I just wanted to share that with you guys. I thought that was really cool. I was hoping that I would be able to add it to my iPad and do a little demo today, but unfortunately, I need to get a new iPad in order to do that. I'll have to put it on the list for Santa this year. All right, I also have 2 useful links for you. One is to citationmachine.net. This will help you with those APA citations in your discussion posts. And the other 2 is to Adobe Color. If you are not familiar with Adobe Color, I'll just give you a little bit of a walkthrough. Make sure that you are signed in with the same username and password as your Adobe CC account. The reason I say this is some people, signed up for Behance and used a different email address for their Behance than they have for the Creative Cloud. And if you sign in with that other email address, it won't sync your color palette to, Photoshop, InDesign, Illustrator, any of the Adobe programs. And I have done that before because my Behance, I set up under a different email address. And one day I sat here putting together color palettes, and I could not for the life of me figure out why they were not showing up in my programs, and I realized I was signed in with my Behance email and not my Creative Cloud email. So just kind of keep that in mind. Make sure you're signed in correctly, so that way those palettes will show up. And if you're not sure, you can see what email it is by clicking on your username, and if you need to sign out, just sign out. And I think I have one more. I wanted to go over the rest of them that are there. You can go over yourself. But we do have DJ Smith is our learning coach for this mod. So these are the hours. Monday is 4 to 7 p.m. Thursday is 7 to 11 p.m. Friday is 5 to 11 p.m. And Saturday is 4 to 10 p.m. And these hours are Mountain Standard Time. So lots of good hours this week. If you need any help, even with writing, like writing up your discussion post, the assignments, the assessment, great resource. Make sure that you are getting in there and seeing DJ. I think that was it. All right, so let's take a look at our course. So make sure, again, that you are logging in, you're doing those daily checkpoints. All of the live sessions will be posted under the live session tab, and they will also be posted under the announcements. If you get to the live session via the announcements, I also will be sharing my slides with you, so my slideshow presentations that I do each live session, so you can go back and read over the slides if you need them. I just figure it's a lot easier to just kind of sit back and watch the slideshow, and then knowing that you'll have access to see the slides later if you do need to go back and reference them for anything. And yep, the recordings will go here as soon as we are done. Well, as soon as I upload them to YouTube and they give me a link. You can get to the Student Success Center right here from the homepage. So the login instructions for the Student Success Center are located right here. So you can click in here, see how to sign in and find your learning coach. So you'll just go, follow the instructions, and then you can click on this icon to actually enter the Student Success Center. And then if you're wondering who you might be seeing, there's different learning coach profiles available right here. So you can kind of see, based on who's in there, what their specialty is. If you're looking for somebody to help you write something out, if you're looking for some help in InDesign, if you're looking for some help in Illustrator, it's just kind of, good to see, who can help you with what. And the help desk is located right here as well. You can find my email in my bio under About the Instructor, which is right there. And yeah, so then let's take a look at the modules for this week so you can kind of see what is coming up in the course. Again, we have a lynda.com playlist for the course under our course media. So you can follow the instructions to access the lynda.com playlist. There are a couple of different videos for each week. So make sure that you are getting in there and watching those videos. The first week we have, on strategy, foundation of branding for designers, strategy 101. And here's some content on it. And then identity systems, logo design techniques, what makes a logo good, before and after, logo design tips and tricks, and more logo design techniques, chapter 2, exploring type variables, and then finalizing your design, and more tips and tricks. So lots of good videos this week. So make sure that you are getting in here and watching the lynda.com videos. And you can access the full week's playlist Once you're logged in, you would click here and then click on lynda.com Student Access Portal, and then you can access each week's playlist right from that link. So you can subscribe to them all or just kind of watch them in order. All right. And what else in our modules? Let me go back into modules. So let's just go through week 1. See what we're doing this week. So the parts and power of logos. Our learning objectives for this week are to define the impact of color, type, and composition within a logo, research and define 3 questions to reveal a unique logo and corporate identity strategy, identify and apply 5 techniques for logo redesign considerations, and analyze the relationship that exists between a logo and a corporate identity. So from packages to software to advertising, every day as humans, we are definitely surrounded by hundreds of logos. Some logos like Nike, Apple, and Coca-Cola are so iconic that just reading the name causes an image of that logo to appear in your mind. I'm sure as soon as I said that, you're like, I see the swoosh, I see the Apple, and I see the Coca-Cola logo. Though to the general public, it might just seem that logos just happen. But we as designers definitely know the secret, and that behind the scenes there is a creator behind every single element of that logo. Because a logo can really make or break a product, this week we are beginning our class with a very common graphic design project, the logo redesign. For a fun, upbeat look at why or when you may be hired to help a client redesign a logo, check out the video below, which is right here. Logo design, when is it time for a logo design? And you may think, you know, it's never time for a logo design, but I'm going to show you some examples later on tonight that clearly state that it is time for a logo design redesign. Which is a good segue into our discussion for this week. So introducing yourself, your logo and identity ecosystem. So again, you know, read over the prompt for the introduce yourself discussion. You know, tell us a little bit about yourself, say hello to the class. Please complete that this week. But this is our graded discussion. So differentiating between a logo and a corporate identity. So let's discuss our objectives. We're going to analyze the relationship that exists between a logo and a corporate identity. So logos. A logo is considered to be the visual representation of a business. Its main purpose is to identify the company to the general public. A logo is most often made up of the company name and some sort of a graphic element, symbol, or icon. In a logo, font, color, and overall composition all work together. Ideally, a logo is unique and easy to recognize, inspiring confidence and positive feelings in all who view it. Then we have the corporate identity. So corporate identity extends the logo across a variety of marketing materials and products to ensure that all products are consistent in design and thus are easy to recognize for consumers. A corporate identity is the company's image and includes anything visual that represents the company. So what is the relationship then between logos and corporate identities? A logo is key to creating a common visual representation of a company. A corporate identity shows the boundaries for how the logo can be used and how it should appear to the public. In this way, logos and corporate identities have a symbiotic relationship, meaning that they both depend upon one another to broadcast and promote a business. For example, while the logo for Nike is the iconic swoosh, the corporate identity for Nike shows how and where the swoosh should be used in a variety of settings. When working with a company, the logo is generally the first element designed. Going through the logo research and development process helps clarify the company goals and overall mission. Once the logo is developed, this information also guides the corporate identity, helping set the tone and mood for how all supporting elements appear. Now, one of the things I want to point out, which might help you understand this, let's pull up the Facebook brand assets page. You can Google this on your own. So this is the Facebook logo, the F logo. However, when we talk about, the corporate identity of Facebook, there are certain ways that this Facebook logo should be used. And Facebook gives you a whole bunch of do's and don'ts on how you may use their logo, because their logo is part of their corporate identity and they are giving you permission to use it, but you must use it in a certain way. The same way that Nike would put their logo on apparel, there's certain parameters that need to be met. That's their corporate identity. Think about if you go to the Apple store and you are looking at all of the packaging that Apple products come in. And the best example I can probably give happened to me a couple of weeks ago. I finally broke down. My Fitbit broke. And I was on the fence about whether or not I was going to buy another Fitbit or I was going to get an Apple Watch. So in, trying to make my decision, basically, I borrowed my mother's Apple Watch for a week, and I loved it. And I was like, you know what? It syncs with everything. It syncs with my Mac. It syncs with my phone. I like the different things that the Fitbit does, but I've gone through 2 Fitbits in a year, and they both broke. So you know what? I'm going to go with the Apple Watch. So I went down to Best Buy because the Apple store is quite a hike from my house, and I purchased an Apple Watch 2, which is the older version because I could not justify the asking price for the Apple Watch 3. And in true Apple fashion, this tiny watch, which I will kind of show you just so you can kind of get a laugh at this. So here's my watch. Clearly, it's the size of a regular watch. The box that came with this watch was literally this big. It was about this thin, and maybe like that. It was huge. It was like this long, thin box, just kind of like that. But very typical of Apple, because that is what Apple does. That's how they package things, because you're spending so much money. They want you to feel as though you got your money's worth. Let's put it in this big box. And the watch came, most watches when you buy them, they're in a square box and they come like this, on the display so you can see it. No, the Apple Watch came laid out like this as it's presented to you. And that is part of Apple's corporate identity, that they do things like that. So they did not disappoint when I bought an Apple Watch from them. So that's kind of, another example of, a corporate identity, how they set the tone and the mood for their products. So for this discussion, now that I've kind of given you a visual of like corporate identities, imagine that you've been hired to first create a logo for a new ice cream shop. At your first meeting, the owners told you their favorite colors were pink and orange, and they really like wacky and wild designs. The owners are looking forward to working with you, but are not really sure what information you need from them to best complete your design work. In approaching this task, what other pieces of information might you need from them to help you develop their logo? Think about that. That's one of the questions you need to answer. If they say that they like orange and pink and they're kind of wacky, what might you ask them to show them? Think of the things that you might ask to see from them in order to get a better feel of what they're looking for. What questions would you ask to access that information? So, pretend when you are writing out these questions in your discussion post, pretend that you're sitting across the table from these ice cream shop owners. What are you going to ask them? Once you have a strong direction for the logo, what sort of things would you need to consider to create a cohesive look and feel throughout the dishes, bags, signage, and postcard advertisements? Because remember, it's not just the logo, you're also creating their corporate identity. Just as Apple was creating a corporate identity when they started making the packaging for the boxes for their laptops, the boxes for their iPads, the box for their watch, the box for their phone. So think about that. For your citation, you might use articles that show examples of the logo in corporate identity design process. So you can look up, look up logo and corporate identity design process, read up a bit about that. That'll probably help you to answer these types of questions. That can be your APA citation. You can also find articles from experts that suggest what questions to ask clients when developing a logo. Your initial and reply posts should work to develop a group understanding of this topic, challenge each other, build on each other, always be respectful, but discuss this and figure it out together. So, and then you can read over the reply requirements. So stop and think about it. Like if you are going into this meeting with this client, you would probably ahead of time have a list of questions, that you're considering asking the client, to get a better understanding of their business and what it is that they are looking for. So that is what you need to discuss in this. All right, which brings us into week 1's assignment, Logo Redesign Part 1. So our learning objectives are to define the impact of color, type, and composition within a logo, identify and apply 5 techniques for logo redesign considerations. In a logo, everything from color to typed composition serves to tell the story of a company. Color often serves to underscore emotion. Type embraces the form or spirit of the company. Composition endeavors to reveal symbolically the underlying structure of a company. A logo redesign process is a delicate balance. You want to update the visual appearance, yet still keep it, its overall feel accessible and trustworthy to its established audience. Imagine if Nike redesigned their logo and all of a sudden they turn the swoosh into a circle. You wouldn't recognize them anymore. And chances are good that if you saw that circle logo on apparel, you might think that it was, it wasn't real Nike merchandise because the logo doesn't match. These are things that we know to look for now. You would probably think it was counterfeit. So you really need to think about that balance when you're redesigning something. They have a core base of customers. You don't want to change their logo so much that they don't recognize the company, but at the same time, the logo that they have is no longer working and it does need to be updated. So that's really a fine, it's kind of a tightrope that you're walking there. Because during a logo redesign, color type and composition often will change, it's very important to define the underlying character qualities that a logo must represent so these qualities can stay consistent. When redesigning a logo, the following 5 considerations should be taken into account. Keep it simple. This is the biggest one. Remember, the logo must be recognized in a variety of sizes and contexts, so anything that is overly intricate or has a lot of colors or gradients should be avoided. Your logo needs to work on something the size of a business card or even smaller, and it needs to work on a billboard. So you need to realize it needs to work in all different types of applications. Don't mix styles. A logo is a visual representation of a company. Therefore, it must present a cohesive voice and vision of what the company is all about. Mixing styles and font, color, or imagery can often result in confusing messages to the consumer. This one's difficult. Don't be swayed by showy typefaces. Though purely typographic, wordmark logos are often a very effective and flexible way to show a company's identity. It's important to remember that typefaces themselves carry characteristics and can unknowingly contribute to logo perception. Though a typeface may be unique and unexpected, it is always best to ruthlessly evaluate its readability and underlying visual message to be sure it is in visual agreement with the overall message. That means if you are making if you're creating a logo for a law office, you are not going to pick a fun font, because a law office, that's serious work that they are doing there. If you're being sued, or you need a lawyer so you can sue somebody else, or you need help, are you going to go to a law office that has, let me pull up something. I'll just show you some examples. Like, let's say I am making a logo for a law office. I pretty much don't want this logo. I'm not going to go to that law office if they chose that. I mean, look at it. The law office of Shannon McNamara. No one would come here. And I can't say that I blame them. I mean, I look like this is a font that should be used for a cartoon. However, you know, if I choose something that feels timeless, that feels professional, that, you know, people will see my logo and say, you know what, I think I trust this person. So what if I picked this font instead? Oops. You know, it feels a little bit more professional. I would probably design this a little bit better, but that feels more professional. You know, so there is, you know, people perceive things when they see certain fonts. So you really need to take that into consideration. And if I get back to you and I say, I don't think that this font is working for what it is that you've chosen, and you say, but I really like it, that's not a reason. You know, I'm just being honest. That's not a reason to choose that font. Be consistent. Often logos will need to work in a variety of settings and in a variety of layouts. For example, a primarily vertical logo must also have a horizontal variation. Conversely, a primarily horizontal logo must also have a vertical variation. As a designer, you must make sure that the message remains consistent regardless of the logo's orientation. It doesn't need an obvious connection, though it's tempting to use a visual illustration, icon, or graphic to represent the industry in which a company is located. Often the cleverest logos are those that are highly abstract and have a little literal tie to the industry. When designing a logo, consider how you can capture the spirit of the company's character. Think of the Starbucks logo. How easy would it have been for them to just put a picture of just coffee and make that their logo? I mean, Dunkin' Donuts really did go that route, although Dunkin' Donuts, their name has donuts in it, and there's no donuts in their logo. It is a picture of coffee, so something else to consider. So our prompt for this week, for the first 2 weeks of this class, so this is kind of like a 2-week-long project, you will be engaged in a logo redesign project. This week, you will choose a client from the 5 selections found within this folder, which are these basically, and begin the design process. In week 2, you will finalize the logo and show it in use within a corporate identity structure. So we have logo 1, the Metropolitan Art Gallery. Logo 2, Hale and Carter's Guitar Academy. Logo 3, Fry's Financial Partners. Logo 4, Central Park Software Solutions. And logo 5, Break of Day Bagel Cafe. So the first thing you might notice is all of these have way too much going on in the logos. So you'll want to think about that, you know, simplifying it. These did not follow keeping it simple. First rule, they broke it right off the bat. Second rule was the fonts. The fonts, this is very unreadable. This doesn't really say fine art to me. This font is not horrible, but there is a lot going on in this logo. And then this just looks dated, and this has way too much going on. So this week you will choose a client from the list provided and create both rough sketches, so that's where the Adobe Sketch program can come into play, and black and white computer drafts of the logo. If you have an existing logo that you would like to redesign for this assignment, you may use it with pre-approved permission from me. So you need to email me first and ask me. So our instructions are: first, choose one of the companies above. Each company has provided a vector copy of the current logo and a one-page description of the company's goals and overall quality. So you're not just looking at this and redesigning it, you need to read this over. You can download both of those by clicking on the name of the company. Next, conduct visual research for inspiration. And number 3, complete 9 preliminary black and white sketches of possible logo concepts, keeping in mind company requests and overall character. You can complete these sketches either by hand or on the computer. If you complete the sketches by hand, you will need to scan them or take a photo of them for assignment submission. Once you have completed your 9 sketches, choose 3 of the most promising directions and create a further refined black and white version of that logo on the computer. If you are taking a picture of your sketches, please be professional and take a good picture. I understand you may have to take the picture with your cell phone, but get the whole picture into the screen, try to copy it, make it look professional and easy for me to see. If you stand way far back and just kind of snap a quick photo and it's all blurry, you're not going to get a good grade. Please present professional looking work this mod. When you have completed all parts of the assignment, create a multi-page PDF that includes the following: the 9 sketches, the 3 refined best logo directions from those sketches, the original logo when presenting the 3 refined black and white logos. So show me a copy of what the original logo looked like. List the company's keywords as found in the company document. You're going to name your file, DES242, assignment 1, first last PDF, and then submit it for grading. Make sure that you have all of the items needed. If it's named wrong, you're going to lose 6 points. So make sure that you're following the directions. 99% of graphic design, when you get out into the field, is following directions. I can't stress that enough. I swear. All right, the assessment for week 2 is to take a quiz. So read over the prompt and choose 3 different articles, and you're going to analyze them for this assignment. For each article, you will need to write at least 150 words summarizing the following: why was the logo redesigned? What new direction does the logo represent? What was the general public reaction to the logo? Do you think it was a successful redesign? This is a little bit confusing because this prompt brings you into the quiz, and it doesn't give you, oh, here it is. Okay. So it shows it as a quiz, which is a little bit confusing, but you need to submit the multi-page PDF. It's not actually a quiz. So I know that seems really confusing when you go to submit it, that it says, take a quiz, submit the quiz. The quiz is actually the file. So I'm going to get a little bit more into that in our next live session, I believe, where I'll go over how to find those resources and all of that. So let's just get back into the slideshow for today. And like I said, we'll come back to this on Thursday. But basically, you need to do research in the library using ProQuest, and you need to research some logo redesigns. So you'll type in the words logo redesign in the search box and find 3 articles on logo redesign, and you're going to read and analyze those articles for this assignment. So these are the questions that you need to respond. If you like to work ahead, I understand that. These are the questions that you do need to answer and write up. Write it up in Microsoft Word and then save it as a PDF from Word. That will check your spelling, check your grammar, make sure that you've, applied some formatting. When you go into Word, you can choose a template. I usually tell students to use this Keystone template. It's just nice, and you can put like a picture on the front if you want. It just looks more professional. Please don't write something up in text edit and then save it as a PDF. It just looks messy. Your submission should have some formatting. This is graphic design. Make it look presentable. If you want to design it in InDesign to make a PDF, also fine. Just make sure that you're checking it. Run it through a spell check and a grammar check before you submit it. All right, so back to our presentation for today. I'll go full screen again. So what is a logo? It seems like a pretty simple question and answer until you really start to think about it. A logo is a word, a symbol, or a picture, or even a combination of them, to visually represent the company. So we have a couple of different logos here that I've shown you. We've got Amazon, we have Apple, the Nike swoosh, Chanel, BBC, Mercedes, Audi, Coca-Cola, Starbucks, Twitter, McDonald's, FedEx. FedEx, one of the most famous logos. In case if you have not noticed it, I'll get into that in a second, but the negative space in FedEx is better than the positive space of the FedEx logo, and we'll get into that. So here's my question. Is a logo a brand? And you can type your response in the chat if you want. Is a logo a brand? Yes or no? And I'll give a couple of seconds for everyone at home to think about it. So a logo is a visual symbol of a brand, but it's not the complete brand. So it's kind of like a yes or and no. It's definitely a visual symbol of that brand, but it is not the brand. All right, so here's some other questions. This is interesting, but is it a logo? Mountain View Greenhouse. Yes or no? Now, what about this one? We got a little bit of a different font, different picture, starting to, come together a little bit more. But is it a logo? How about this one now? Again, starting to, we've dropped the picture, so it can be scaled now, because we can't scale this version or this version, for a billboard. This photo is going to get really low res, and then this photo is going to get really low res. But the readability on this still is it's a little bit difficult. So how about this one? Is this a logo? So out of the 4, the answer is yes. Yes, but not a good version of the logo. No, and no. So let's look at this one. Why is this the best of the bunch? It's the readability's there. I can tell just from looking at it that it's going to work in black and white and color. The graphic represents, it goes along with the name, Mountain View Greenhouse, and we've got, this graphical representation of mountains. This can be scaled down small to be put on a business card or really large to go on a billboard. Both versions would still work. The readability would still be there. I can see it and instantly understand what is communicating. Oh, Mountain View Greenhouse. Oh, all right. They must have a mountain view in their greenhouse. All right, pretty cool. Like, instantly makes sense. So that's why this version works better than even this version. This is very difficult to read. Yeah, sure. The font looks like grass and they probably grow things and it's green, so that kind of makes sense. And look, I put it in a circle. But it's not a logo, it's not complete. And that can't be scaled really small. You wouldn't be able to read it. And even if it got really big, it still has readability issues. So that's why this version is the best of the bunch. So why does a good logo work so well? It has simplicity, it has unity, it's logical, it's consistent, and it's also creative. But you'll notice that creative is down the bottom because we need to make sure we have all of these things working for us before we even get into the creative end. Because ultimately, we need to make sure that our logo logically makes sense for our company. So simplicity. The logo must be recognizable in a variety of sizes and contexts. Thus, overly intricate illustrations or color gradients should be avoided because, especially with gradients, you may say, but why gradients? Because a gradient changes every single time a logo is resized. That's how a gradient works. It never looks the same at every single size. The same thing can happen with outlines on a logo, and if you're adamant on adding an outline to a logo, there is a specific way that outline must be added, and it's not by putting a border on something. I will show you how to do it at some point this week, either tonight if I get into Illustrator or on Thursday. If you just put a border around something, that border size gets really large when you shrink the logo down, and it gets really small when you make the logo big. So there isn't consistency when you are resizing the logo. Unity. A logo is the visual representation of a company. So mixing styles and font color or imagery often results in a confused message to the consumer. I guess the best way, let's think about this. Like if Apple computers didn't have, the apple as their logo, what if they had a potato, and they just thought that was funny? Like, hey, you know what? We're Apple computers, but we're going to have a drawing of a potato. That would be really confusing, Or if they had a font, that just totally didn't match. They make slick design is their thing. Like my watch, my phone, my computer, really slick, not bulky products. So would it make sense if they had a clunky font, a really thick font? Probably not. That would really be a mixed message. Logical. The logo is a visual representation, so it needs to be logical. If you mix those styles again, it's going to result in a confused message. Oh, whoops. And also, although purely typographical, I think I have a double of my slide. So though purely typographical, wordmark logos are often a very effective and flexible way to show a company's identity. It is important to remember that typefaces themselves carry character traits and can unknowingly contribute to logo perception. So it needs to make sense. Your typeface choice, everything, they need to make sense when you are creating that logo. Because if you could, back to what I said about Apple, if there is a really, clunky font that you have picked, that's not a logical choice for that logo, and it doesn't go with the feel and the aesthetic of the logo. So you want to make sure that your choices make sense and consistent. Does it work in every space where it might be placed? Is it going to work on a billboard? Is it going to work in the lower right-hand corner of the packaging at maybe 1 inch by 1 inch? Is it going to work up on a billboard? Is it going to work on a TV screen? You have to think of everywhere that we see a logo these days. Is it going to work embroidered on a shirt? Stop and think about that. How many people or how many places let's say that there's like a golf tournament and it's a company tournament and your company gave everybody shirts to wear to this golf tournament. Chances are good that your logo of your company is going to be embroidered on your shirt. So it can't be so complex that it can't be run through an embroidery machine and put on a shirt. So these are things that you need to think of. Think of every place that you see a logo these days, and think of everywhere that it needs to work. So that's that's something to think about when you're doing these logo redesigns. The originals clearly of those logos would not work like that. So you want to make a better product for your customer that they're going to be able to use everywhere. Creative. How can you capture the spirit of the company's character? That's why they hired us as graphic designers. We're the creative people. We're the ones who sit here, read over what it is that they need, and we figure it out. We look at that. We look at our clients and we say, all right, I understand your needs. You need X, Y, and Z, and I'm here to provide that for you, and I'm here to come up with the best solution to get clients and potential customers in your door. So that's what you need to think about. All right, so we're going to play a little game here. Which is the current logo? And this is Cadillac. On the left or on the right? And if you want, you can type in the chat which one you think it is. Which one is the current logo? And if you guessed on the right, you are correct. This is the old logo, and this is now the new logo. So you can notice, like, the shield is still there. We got rid of the circle that went around the shield, but it's been extended, but the color scheme stayed the same in the shield. So very interesting. Not a huge leap, but it updated the brand a little bit. All right, which is the new logo, left or right? And if you said the right, you are correct. All I can think of when I see the old Olive Garden logo is what a nightmare this must have been for print designers to use this logo. And they held on to this logo for many, many, many years. This is a lot sleeker. It's a lot cleaner. It feels more modern. This logo has just so much going on. And I don't even know if I ever saw a true vector version of this logo. I don't know if a vector version of that logo existed. I'm not even kidding. It would have been a nightmare. There's so much Photoshop work going on in it. You've got drop shadows. So this is way easier for designers to work with. It's more squared, so it's easier to be scaled down into different sizes and scaled up. Works very well. All right, which one is the current logo, left or right? And if you said left, you are correct. So you can see that what they have done is they've retained the M. But before, Marriott was in the whole font. And now the M has kind of become an icon with the word Marriott in a different font, smaller and underneath, because they know that as soon as somebody sees this M, it's recognizable. And they also dropped this icon. The M has changed. Well, maybe it didn't. Maybe it didn't change because this icon was, I never understood that. It almost looked like it was this part of the M, but it wasn't truly that part of the M. But again, just sleeker, cleaner logo, but not a complete redesign. They didn't lose their entire essence of who they were. All right, Vistaprint, left or right? And the right is the new logo. So you can see in their old version, they had a lot of gradients going on, which as a print company, that kind of does make sense. However, I really like what they've done here with the different hues of blue to make up the V, which is kind of showing what they do, you know, for print, like overlaying color. And this is a much better font choice. It's nice and clean. I really like sans serif fonts myself personally. I just think that I really like this version a lot better. Much simpler. All right, Disney Channel, left or right? And if you said left, you are correct. This had a lot going on, but it was like, you know, inside the mouse ears, inside of a square that I'm assuming was to represent a TV. However, we all have widescreen TVs now. Disney does use a gradient. However, the gradient is encapsulated within the confines of the logo. It's not within the text. So it kind of does work. Personally, I probably wouldn't have made that choice. However, I think also changing the channel font to kind of like this handwritten font works here because, you know, it's a kid's channel. Also, I like that instead of just the regular top of the eye, which is part of the original Disney signature, they've added the mouse ears in there to kind of cap it off. I think it's a successful redesign. Ian Bacardi, left or right? If you said left, you are correct. Personally, when I looked at it, I thought that this was the redesign, but it is not. And it's kind of interesting that they chose to go with this image instead of the vector version. This feels like I don't think that this was really an effective redesign. I like this font, but I probably would have stayed with the vector bat rather than going to this, you know, graphical bat. But, you know, they did not ask me. So I honestly, I don't feel that this was a really successful redesign, personally. But, you know, hey, you win some, you lose some. All right, we've got PayPal, left or right? And the new one is on the right. So they've kind of just, it's a little bit of a different font. You can see in the A's, it has the same feel, but it has a simpler A. And then the P's have also been simplified to just overlay each other with the dark of the blue kind of showing through right here. I like that use of the negative space right there. Like it feels like it almost feels like the Vistaprint logo where the type is, you know, the ink is overlaid. So I think that this was a successful redesign. And Reebok. And the new one is on the left. So you can see they kind of got rid of their swoosh, which I always felt that this was, it felt like kind of like the Adidas logo in a way. So we've gone to this symbol. I'm not gonna lie, I don't really know why. But the font stayed the same, which is good. So this remained the same. You know, we got rid of this for this. I don't really know what it represents, honestly. But somebody somewhere does, or they thought it looked cool. It was one of the two. Is it a successful redesign? I guess. I mean, it doesn't hurt. Honestly, as long as the word Reebok stayed the same, I feel like that kind of makes it work. And then Volvo. Not a huge difference between the two. So left or right? And randomly enough, the new one is on the left. You would have thought that this would have been the redesign, making the name larger. However, it's not. They've simplified the circle with the arrow and dropped the name down and into the center of the circle only. Personally, I think that this is a better version. I don't know why you would make your name smaller. I just don't see why, but hey. Again, kind of like Bacardi, they didn't ask me. And then we have Airbnb. So left or right? If you said right, you are correct. I do like the new version. It's not that this version was bad, but for some reason, I get it, you know, like Airbnb is supposed to be one word. And this part right here, where they sort of kind of, you know, didn't connect the letters to make it two different words, that always bothered me. So yeah, so I would have, that right there just bothered me all the time. And I probably would have connected it right here as well. But I do think that this is a more successful redesign. I like the font better. All right, so that is the end of my slideshow for tonight. Let me get into Illustrator. And pull up what I was going to work on. All right, so I am going to redesign the Martha's Vineyard logo. I know that seems kind of weird, but I don't want to choose a logo that is part of the course for a very important reason. I feel that when you watch somebody design something in a certain way and then it looks a certain way, it's hard to unsee that. You know what I mean? So if I say, all right, I'm going to do the Metropolitan Art Museum one, but you can't design your logo the way I designed my logo, and then you watch me for 45 minutes work in Illustrator, on some, in some way, you are going to subconsciously start doing the same things that I did because you can't unsee it. It happens to me. It happens to everybody. So I learned a while back to kind of pick a different, show you some of the ways that I go about doing things, but definitely, take a different route. So that way that you're not watching me step by step and then you have to try to come up with your own way to do it. So I'm going to redesign, long story short, the a Martha's Vineyard logo. So I'll pop back into the assignment for a second. So what I'm going to pretend is that, Martha's Vineyard has called me up and they said, hey, you know what? People aren't coming to our island anymore, and we're not quite sure why. We're thinking that maybe they don't know that it is an island, or maybe they aren't sure that we have beaches if they're coming from far away and out of state. They don't really know where Martha's Vineyard is located. So can you come up with a logo idea that kind of encompasses the beach and, the ocean and things of that nature, and what we're about. So the first thing that I would do is I would look up a little bit about them. I believe this is the URL. So I'd say, oh, all right, they're coastal. These are some things to think about. Also things to think about when I'm thinking of my colors, but first off, I'm going to do, some preliminary sketches. So because I can't sketch up in the program, what I'll do is I'll kind of show you how I sketch in Illustrator. You need to use Illustrator to make your logos. Your logos need to be vector. They cannot be made in Photoshop. It's not good practice to make them in InDesign. You're going to have the most tools at your disposal in Illustrator. So this is the program that you need to use. What I would do is you need to have, how many sketches? 9 sketches. So if you're going to sketch them out on paper, you'll have 9 pieces of paper. If you're going to sketch them out in Illustrator, I would make 9 artboards and keep each sketch to its own artboard. I don't believe that you are given a size to work in. So double check that. Yeah, it doesn't give you a size. Personally, when I am creating a logo, I do a 10 by 10. I like to work in a square. I'm only going to set up 4 artboards right now. Again, you would set up 9 if you were doing it this way, and create. Hold on. I just need to double check that I didn't do something stupid. Hold on 1 second, because I noticed it said RGB. I don't know if I was in web. I was doing some weird things earlier. Print. There we go. Inches. 10 by 10 by 4. CMYK. All right. Create. There we go. All right. So say I might have set that up the wrong way. So now I can keep each of my sketches to each to each artboard. So I might start to think about different fonts I might use. And there's a couple of different resources that you can use for this. You can use Adobe Typekit. So you can go right from your character panel. If you don't have your character panel open, go to Window. Where is it? Type, Character. And right here where it shows you the font, go to Add Fonts from Typekit. And that'll pop Typekit open for you. And I like to do things like, type out in the search what I'm looking for. So Martha's Vineyard. So I can kind of get a look before I just start willy-nilly adding fonts that don't feel like they kind of fit. If you know that you want a sans serif, if you know you want decorative, if you know you want a script, black letter, you can, select different classifications to kind of narrow your search. When I first start out, sometimes I don't really know what it is that I'm looking for, so I kind of keep everything open. And you can favorite things and then check out your favorites. So I'm going to favorite that one. Favorite this one. That one. That. That one. It's a little fun. So again, this is a vacation destination, so I'm looking for some fun fonts. And that's probably good for now. Oh, where to put, oh, here we go. My library. Oh, favorites. I was gonna say, where are my favorites? Right in the tab called favorites. So I liked this one. And you need to make sure that there is, it's free, number one, that you can sync it. And then it's not web only, which it usually won't sync if it is web only. And then again, put in what you're looking for and see if you even still like it. I kind of like the bold version. All right, I'm going to sync these. And it sometimes takes a minute for them to show up in InDesign or in Illustrator. I'm back. I kind of like this one. Let's check it again. I like the V for this one. I like how vineyard looks. Sync these. This one's kind of fun. Let's check it out again. Yeah, I do like this. I like this one too. All right, so I'm going to go with these three, and then I have another font that I'm thinking of. So while these are syncing, takes a minute, like I said. You can't remember what it was. I know Graffolita. I'm just going to copy that so I know what to look for when. And you can sort by your typekit fonts only afterwards by hitting this TK button. That'll just pull up those typekit fonts, so that way, you know, you don't have to scroll through your whole list trying to remember which one you had added. Oh, wait patiently for your fonts to add. You can even, if you want to do sketches, you can also use Photoshop to do sketches if you're good drawing with your mouse. I'm not one of those people who's really great, I'm not gonna lie, drawing with my mouse. My husband's really good at it. However, I am not. I just don't, I somehow missed that skill set, it feels like. So you can do that. Again, I would just go right into grayscale. Use your brush tool. A little bit wide. So let's say that I'm thinking of doing something with like the V, like that font I found from Martha's Vineyard, maybe turning the V into an ice cream cone, you know, because it's summertime, people spend summer on the vineyard. This is what I mean. I'm horrible at using my mouse to draw. You know, something like that. Maybe the eye becomes a cherry. And then the word Martha's is right here. You know, you can try to do some sketching in Photoshop. Again, if your skills are right around where mine are, but you know you can sketch it a little bit better on paper, I would use paper. Because I understand if you're just like me, you're like, I can't really sketch that well. All right, did those fonts show up? Are you here yet? Forgot what I even picked. Graffolita. Graffolita, not there yet. It just, sometimes it takes so long for them to sync. Which is kind of a pain. You can also use, there's a site called fontsquirrel.com, and I will put this in, I'll put this into the slideshow for you. Let me insert a slide while we're waiting. There we go. Font Squirrel is a great resource. Most of the fonts on here are free. Sometimes you'll pick one, and like this one, I believe is paid, and you'll realize that you have to buy it. It doesn't give you the, you know, say download intro Rust from Font Spring, and then you get over there and you have to pay for it. But most of them are free to use. So this is a really good resource if you you know, just aren't seeing what you're looking for on Typekit. But I would start with Typekit because it's going to sync right to your machine, so you don't have to worry about loading those fonts. So we have and there you go. So those are some resources for you. Come on, Typekit. Oh, it shows that it's synced. Let's see. No. It's synced, but not really. I find that this always happens when I'm waiting patiently to do something. But I did have one other font I was going to use, and I don't recall where I put it. Ah, that's what it was called, BP Diet. So I'll work with that one. This font, I found this before, and this is a pretty fun font. So I'm just going to start off by just typing this font out. And again, when you are creating your logo, before you submit your logo, you're going to want to save two versions. You're going to want to save a version that has your fonts as a font, and leave that for yourself. So you can go in and, you know, edit things if you need to adjust your kerning or what have you. But you're also going to want a version where you've turned the fonts to outlines. So what I like to do is drag out a copy of my text box just kind of off of the screen, and then the one on the screen, turn it to outlines, which you can do under Type, Create Outlines. And then you can see that it's vector right here. You can tell that it's not. And that's Command Y to check that. It's under View, Outline, View. I also need to decide whether or not I want my name in all caps. Whoops. Or not. There we go. Which I might. I kind of like this idea of both lines being, you know, running, being the same length. So I don't necessarily want to make the word, oh, here we go, 13 fonts were added. Thank you. So I don't necessarily want to make the word vineyard larger per se. Oops. There we go. I might need to just adjust the tracking on vineyard. I always use guides for everything. So just enough where it looks like it's the same width. And I'm going to turn this one to outlines. Oh, whoops, make a copy of it first. Delete that. So once I start to really work with something, once I picked a font, I turn it to outlines because I think that it's easier to work with something when it's an object rather than type, because I don't want to accidentally select and change like the R to the letter T or something like that, you know, on my keyboard. So it's kind of like working with art that way. So I personally choose to work this way. Some people do not. If you want to, once you turn to outlines, if you have it on 2 different lines and you want to ungroup it, it's Command-Shift-G will ungroup each of the items. So then you can select each letter individually. I'm not a fan of skewing type, you know, like making it really tall just to make it really tall. I don't know. I'm just not a fan of that. For this one, I already had an idea in mind because I always come into things. I have a wave that I'm going to use. I always have some ideas before I start teaching the class, so it's not like I come up with these things right away. You know, do something maybe like this. Start to break it up. And I'll come back to that one, but my font's loaded, so I'm going to work on my next idea, which was turning that V into a ice cream cone. I just need to remember which font it was that I was going to do that with. My favorites. I think it was this Grapholita. I think that V would probably work the best. So let's take a look. We'll see. Grapholita. I'll start off at medium. And this is new. I don't know why it does this, but every time you use the text tool now and you put down the cursor, it puts lorem ipsum text, and I don't know how to turn that off, but it drives me bananas. So I'm going to need to look this up. This is a new thing. All right. So you'll notice right away, there we go. All right. That my letters weren't completely combined. If you're going to use a script font, make sure that your letters connect where they should connect. Otherwise, if you get like the, you know, like, let me show you. Like, see how the I isn't connected and the N isn't connected? It's very distracting to see. I personally, I think. So make sure that your letters connect. I'm going to make the V a lot bigger because, again, I'm going to kind of turn it into an ice cream cone, maybe. Which I'll try using the ellipsis tool. Kind of have an idea in mind of how I'm going to do this. Oops. It's my line. Oh, right here. And Pathfinder. These are annoying too. That happened when I upgraded. I don't know why it's doing that either. And make a copy of this. It'd be easier if I work with this way. And start to break apart the little different sections here. I want to keep this part of vineyard together, so I'm going to group this. And then I think my V needs to be a little bit larger. See if I can just make this part of the V larger. Whoops. Working in outlines, that usually helps. There we go. Ugh. Gotta get all of those points. There we go. Hopefully. Kind of have to reconnect some things. This is getting a little complicated, not gonna lie. And I don't want the word Martha's in a script, so I'm gonna find another, like maybe a sans serif font to go with it. So again, I'm just kind of, maybe something like this. Nope. Now, it does not work. I feel like this has gotten a little bit crazy. Maybe this is too much. Maybe it's just 2 cones. So I'm just going to leave that there while I stew on that. And then, because again, these are just sketches, so coming up with ideas here. So what was my other font that I picked? Hummingbird, that was one. Again, I kind of like this font for the word vineyard. This has more of a classic feel to it. So maybe I'll put kind of like a Garamond with it. We'll see how that looks. I don't know. Make a couple of different sketches of this. I feel like it might work. I'm not sure. I feel like that's just too much. Nope. No. Maybe smaller. Another version of it. Oops. Maybe Gaudi. Gaudi Old Style is a good font. The S over though. So it's a couple that I can think about right here. And then normally I would think that I need a sans serif font to go with this, but I think the little feet go well with like the old feel of this. Like this has kind of a handwritten, like with a quill feel. I don't know, I think of like the signing of the Declaration of Independence when I see this font. So I kind of want to find, you know, these are older fonts. Garamon's an old font. I don't even know. Cinzel, it's probably not an old font, but it has that look. You know, Gaudi Old Style, that's an old font. Like these are old, like fonts that were, you know, created, gosh, so long ago. And then for my last one, I gotta refer back to my list again. I wish it showed you when you synced it, because I don't remember. CC Meanwhile, was that one I picked? Right now? Maybe not. If I did, I'm not a fan of it if I did. That one could be cool. P22 Cezanne. Maybe I didn't add it. After all that, oh well. All right. Hatch, did I? Oh, I did add Hatch. We'll try that one. I don't remember why I added it, but there was one version. Oh, I think I like the bold version of it. I thought that that could be fun. What about with this one if I just did like a MV from Martha's Vineyard? And then maybe I have a circle going around that says it. Just, yeah, I like that one too. That the other one, yeah. The Grapholita or whatever it is. This one, yeah, that's what this one is. I like the V in it. I feel like it's just too much with it for both, but I'm not a fan of this font per se. I just kind of landed there while I was trying to turn this into an ice cream cone. My ice cream cone's not really good. I need to work on that. But it's just my sketch. So if I decide to go in that direction, I'll fix it, basically. All right, so let me draw a circle here. And type on a path. Ugh. Full disclosure, I am awful at typing on a path. So we can all sit and laugh while I try to get this centered up here. It drives me nuts. I might do two. I might do Martha's at the, really? There we go, all right. Might do two. Martha's at the top. Copy, edit, paste in place. Never get things exactly centered. Definitely need, lock that one. Grab this one. Come on. No. No! Which one are you? All right, there we go. Not a good font. Let's see. I like the idea of the engraver's font, but I know it's not going to work. What about this one? The all caps. What size did I make you? 48/300. All right. And you can see I'm just a bit off with having this centered. And just a bit off having that one centered. Move that over, turn this to outlines, and group this, probably do something like this. No, do not select that too. Okay, there we go. I like to lock things. Want to combine. So maybe something like, I could see that on a, like on a t-shirt or something. And then maybe, what are you asking? How did I do?
How did you blend those two letters together?
Oh, what I did was, all right, so I turned them to outlines first. And then by doing, you might have missed that part, under object, no, wait, under type, create outlines. Then I like to work sometimes in outline mode, which is view. View, it's Command Y, GPU preview, but it would say view outline mode. And then what I did was I grabbed, all right, let me delete this box. I grabbed with my white selection tool the edge of each letter, and I started to move them over because basically what I wanted was this line. I could do something like that too, to connect over here. See how they're running into each other now? And I can actually do it right here. And then sometimes you gotta kind of drag and select it, move it over. And you're just kind of like manipulating the lines at this point. So that way when you turn it back, it looks like they're connected.
Oh, really? Thanks.
No problem. And then unlock all. So, like I said, I can kind of see this one on like a sweatshirt for the island, and then maybe there's like some oars or something, like for a boat. So I can kind of like sketch that out. Like here's one oar, comes out over here, and then the other oar is over here that kind of does this. Because again, these are my sketches. So that kind of shows that, which I mean, I really could have done like the, this is a sketch as well, which I might do because I think that that came out awful. So my ice cream cone. And then turning the eye into, you know, a cherry or something. Maybe even realizing I have to get rid of, like I want to get rid of this part of the V, or, you know, these aren't my finished product. So your sketches shouldn't be a finished product. It's really you showing your thought process to then get to that finished product. So it can look like a sketch. Like, you know, this isn't clearly finished. So we use the brush tool and just, I would probably end up doing something like this with this wave. So you can kind of just go over it with, whoops, with white. Oh, come on. To kind of fill it in and kind of complete my thought process. So you can kind of get an idea of where I'm going with this. So this is one way that you can complete those sketches for assignment 1. Again, you can literally sketch them out on paper if you want first. You can sketch them out in Photoshop. You can use that Adobe Sketch program. It's kind of what you're more comfortable doing. You know, when you do the sketch process, you know, it's really what you're comfortable doing. I just kind of wanted to show you guys a couple of different versions tonight. All right, so Our second live session will be on Thursday instead of on Tuesday this week because of Halloween. I'm going to wrap this up today, but we'll kind of finish this up on Thursday. We'll talk a little bit more about writing that paper. We'll do a library tour. And if anybody has any questions between now and Thursday, you can always shoot me an email, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. All right, I want to thank you guys for being able to make it tonight. And I hope to see you again on Thursday. All right, have a great night, everyone.